So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our second experience sharing session, which is part of an initiative under Biodiversa Plus, the European Biodiversity Partnership. I realize that there's many among you who might not be too familiar with this, so we will leave you a link to our website. If you want more information, we will not explain too much more about it in this session. Um, yeah, so these series are organized by our working group on harmonizing biodiversity monitoring protocols and is designed to encourage the exchange of best practices within these monitoring protocols. And today we turn our focus to the fascinating coralligenous habitats. And we are honored to have with us Senem Önen Tarantini, representing the Italian Ministry of Universities and Research, MUR. And Senem will be sharing her valuable experience and insights into some of the common practices for monitoring these habitats. And her expertise will bring some fresh perspective and some practical knowledge as well to the discussion. And before we begin, I'd like to let you know that this session will be recorded. Actually, the recording already started. So this session is recorded. And later it will be available on the Biodiversa Plus YouTube channel. And this way, for those who couldn't join us, they can watch it again, or if you would like to revisit it, it will always be available. And also to get to know the audience a bit better, it's so nice to see that there's so many of you here today. I will now launch a quick interactive poll using Slido. And these questions will help us understand a bit better your background and the goals for attending this session. It will only take a minute, so I will share my screen. So I don't know if you're familiar with Slido, but there's a QR code that you can scan, or if not, you can type in to Google the slido.com and join in with this ID over here. And there's a couple of questions I will let you answer and we can see them live. Okay, excellent. It seems like it's not shifting too much anymore. So it's nice to see a big diversity of participants. It's really nice, a strong marine biodiversity expert as well. So very relevant. Now we can
We're
go
also
on.
happy to see policymakers here.
Yeah, that is really important for us as well.
Finally.
Finally, yes, that's what we've been trying to reach out to researchers and also policymakers. Yeah, so now about this session in particular, what are your expectations from it? To see a bit more. Okay, this is really nice. You see, many of you are here to learn more about the monitoring of coralligenous habitats. So that was one of our objectives as well. So thank you, Senem, for being here to share with us on that topic. And regarding the protocols themselves, so that also is great. That's one of our objectives as well. A few people who would like to share their own experience, yes, please do. At the end, there will be an open discussion. So that is also one of the main points of these experience sharing sessions. So you can also discuss about your own practices and protocols. So that will be super relevant. Okay, nice. And now maybe the last question is just a tiny icebreaker. It's not always easy online, so just a funnier question maybe, if you would like to answer. Okay, thank you so much for participating in this. Good to get to know a bit the audience, at least. Yeah, so that was all on my side. I will stop sharing my screen now. So yeah, it's fantastic to see such a large and diverse group of participants here. And whether you're here to contribute, learn, simply out of curiosity, your participation is really key. So we encourage you to actively engage, ask questions, and really make the most out of this opportunity. And without further ado, let's dive in. So Senem, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Senem Önen Tarantini. I am researcher in University of Salento, Italy. Mainly, I am marine biologist and algal taxonomist. I have worked in different impact assessment and monitoring projects. I have been working in Biodiversa Plus network for almost 3 years, I think. We are leading a task about data interoperability and harmonization, and we are collaborating with Michelle. She leads the task of the harmonization of biodiversity monitoring protocols. The aim of this effort, enhancing the usage of biodiversity monitoring data, providing effective research results to support marine conservation effort. We are trying to create a network to develop common protocols. As a result, research data can be interoperable across countries. Having this kind of data on specific habitat or species can give us a broader view on ecological trends, so we can provide better future prediction models that helps us our decision on future actions, also for the policy making. So we work on a different dimension of monitoring, like protocols, cost of the monitoring, gathering data, sharing data, etc. As Michelle says, this is one of the experience sharing system. And I work in Turkey and Italy in different projects on Coralligenous habitats. First, we will talk about the general specification of this habitat. Then we will talk about how we work with them, common practices, gaps, and finally, we will share our ideas. So let's go on. Coralligenous habitats has presence from photic zone, where there is a light, up to final limit of mesophotic zone, where is very dim light, where the main bioconstructors are calcifer organisms, especially coralline algae species, also corals and mollusks. In terms of the biodiversity, the Coralligenous habitat is considered as a second benthic ecosystem in Mediterranean. The species richness is so high. It includes around 1,300 algae species and 1,200 invertebrate species and around 2,000 fish species. Meanwhile, the first benthic ecosystem is Posidonia oceanica seagrass habitat. Dominant species and main builders may vary across depth and region. These photos here belong to a project that I worked before. It calls DGESMAT. In these photos, we categorize dominant species. As you can see, there are different features. And our dominant species in the first photo is the green algae. It's Halimeda tuna, yes. Second and the third one, coral species. And the fourth one is red algae species. This is Peysonelia. This is not considered as coralline algae species, but it also has calcium carbonate in the thallus, in the structure. Here, fifth one is coralline algae, and 6 and 8 also another coral species, and the 7 there are small tiny red structures. There are bryozoan species. The coralligenous habitat is living, spawning, and hatching area for many species. They build physical structures and they reform the environment permanently. Nowadays, their disadvantage, they have very slow growth rate, like some millimeters to centimeters in year, and they are the subject of the ocean acidification. So I simply explain the ocean acidification. Ocean acidification caused by absorption excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. When carbon dioxide dissolves in seawater, it forms carbonic acid, then that dissociates into hydrogen and bicarbonate ions. And the increase in hydrogen ions reduce the available carbonate ions in the water. And when the carbonate ion became rare in the water, the calcifer organisms cannot find this element to develop their structure. As a result, these organisms or they can't develop at all, or they develop a fragile structure. For coralline algae species, the fluctuations on pH level is more dangerous than low pH level because they produce some chemical components to protect their surface, and the cost of energy cost of the production is this chemical components is so high, and since energy goes to the production of the chemicals, it cannot focalize on reproduction process. Here I took some examples from different researchers. There are different studies on a porosity of coral species and deformities. When pH level is low, these photos on the left side show the demonstration of how the porosity of the coral species is high and the developmental deformities. And on the right side, this set of photos demonstrates what happened when the carbon dioxide level is high. First photo shows the defense mechanism of coralline algae works in somehow in lower carbon dioxide level, and the last photo shows turf algae. Turf algae means the small heights up to 5 centimeters of mix of the algae and the hydrozoan, bryozoan species. The turf covers totally coralline surface. Even they seasonally will disappear, but in the last photo, coralline vitality not exist anymore in that place. So recovery, it won't be possible. So what we talk about that? So what are the other traits on coralligenous habitats? Climate change, it's first. Also invasive species. I would like to express again climate change effect, combining effect with invasion. This is a very big problem in Mediterranean, especially east part of the Mediterranean, because especially Red Sea species has no ecological barrier in the east part of Mediterranean, and these Red Sea species they came from an area where is the species competition is so high, because there is a very small area, too many species. They are well developed. They have well developed defense mechanism, survival mechanism, and when they introduce Mediterranean, Mediterranean species are quite innocent respect to Red Sea species. I feel like Dyke Rider and his military team fighting with SpongeBob and friends when if he can if he calculate their power of the survival. And okay, other problem is marine litter, abundant and tangled fishing gears. Anchoring is not so much studied, but we are talking about very slow growing structure. So anchoring also should be a matter for us. Organic pollution. This is a big problem in some part of Mediterranean. For example, Turkey and Greece, they have big aquaculture farms. But obviously, this is not only organic pollution resource. Coastal erosion. This is a very complicated and multidisciplinary subject. And illegal species collection. This is related to people. I need to have everything in my home, kind of tourists, divers, and unfortunately, they are not few. And okay, you can see here some effect of the trees. In the first photo, the necrosis on a coral species, and the photo on the top right, they are mucilagin, and the net or the last photo on the right, the cobra turf. Okay, are we monitoring Coralligenous habitats? Sorry. Okay, here we can say yes, we can say no, we can say it depends on money. All European Union member states with marine waters should apply marine strategy framework. However, each member state develop its own marine strategy framework. As a result, we have no collaborative approach on monitoring Coralligenous habitat. Some countries' monitoring programs includes also Coralligenous habitat. For example, in Italy, via video transect methods and the laser points, etc., we monitor the percentage coverage of coralline algae, turf, and the necrosis in yearly basis. So, okay, there are many studies and effort to develop an index or a protocol to evaluate Coralligenous habitat health status. There are around 20 indexes. I listed some of them here. So I won't read them one by one, but most used one ESCA TI. This one concentrates on ecological quality. And here, course, also one of the most used index. It concentrates on structural complexity. And at the end, there is a STAR and GIGASMET works, and they try to standardize metrics and protocols. Here, I cannot say this one is the best one or this one is a more effective one. I will explain why later. Okay. I checked all these indexes and other Coralligenous habitat studies. There are some common practice, and most used ones: scuba diving, photo surveys with scuba diving, video surveys, and rows. Why photo surveys is so common? It's reduced to sampling effort, sampling time of the diver underwater, and working with photos is easy. It gives very big possibility to categorize species, understands up to genus level. Meanwhile, video surveys are limited. The main reason, I think, it depends on also my experience. The calculation of the coverage of the species is quite hard from videos. When you stop the videos, you lose the dimension, the clarity of the image, etc. And the last one, raw. Actually, the usage of raw is very effective, especially for the habitat mapping. In one day, you can describe the limit of the habitat, but here the problem is the cost of the machine and technician. Ultimately, I think in Italy, it was something like €1,000 daily basis, renting a row with a technician. Again, when I check all these indexes and other research, what are the most monitored components across various indexes? Diversity, species richness, as percentage cover of this species. And obviously, we can't identify species level from photo. We use categories. For example, identifying coralline algae, I need to go through electron microscopy. So it's crucial that I need to take sample, I bring it to laboratory. But from photo, I can just say encrusting coralline algae, like HER, we are making groups like turf and soft branched algae. There are list of species on these groups, but from photo, you can only make a categorization of these main groups. Necrosis, apobiosis is also worked a lot. 3D complexity of the structure. It's also studied in different methods. First one is with diving, in situ measurements, but it takes lots of time. Multi-beam sonar is also one of the technique. Laser sensors, these are we use in video analysis. We use 2 points of laser on a video transect, so we know the dimension of the lasers, so we can estimate the height of the colonies, if there are coral colonies, or the sponge or turf coverage from these laser points. Litter and fisher gear, existence of this stress factor also monitor it a lot. And the sedimentation, because this is a great impact on coral health. If the sedimentation is high, we lose the vitality. Okay, what are the coralligenous, the challenges that we can't choose a common practice on monitoring coralligenous habitats? Even there are some common practice. First, we have a big knowledge gap. Before we start to monitor a habitat, we need to well define its community structure and status. In many points in Mediterranean, we don't have historical data. We have problem defining the sensitivity level of across region. It is not easy to identify existent stress factors and combining effect. We need more data to estimate climate change effect, but for many regions there is a lack of base data. And we also have very limited knowledge about recovery process. We don't know exactly what happened, what is the recovery process after mass mortality events. And other category, we can say here we go, okay, methodology and cost. Here main problem, what we need to monitor and how to monitor it, how we can choose point to monitor, and what should be the frequency of the sampling activities. For example, in Italy, these sampling activities occurs in once a year. So if there's a seasonal pattern, we lose it. Also, should we monitor abiotic parameters and how to do it? Or it makes sense having abiotic parameters once while we are doing sampling, it makes sense or not. For example, this year I had chance to discuss with project managers of Biodiversa Plus funded projects. There were many researchers from terrestrial habitats, and they were so concentrated on species habitats itself, but they don't care so much collecting abiotic parameters or stress factors. I was wondering why they don't care impact or abiotic parameters, how they can explain the change in biodiversity without these parameters. When I spoke with them, they said, because we can gather this kind of information from other resources, satellite images, meteorology station, or there are other stakeholders, and they collect this data, so we can access this data. For me, it was quite mind-blowing. I was like thinking, who can collect the underwater data for us? It not happened in my career. Maybe some information satellite data, yes, but is it work for the monitoring of coralligenous habitats? And also how much we can measure the impact. For example, we have modules to complete, and for liter, if we see plastic bag in video, we checked. Okay, I have seen plastic bag. I take a square and I say little is exist, but we don't say how big it is, and it is mobile or not, or fishing net. I say yes, I saw fishing net, but I don't say it damaged the area. It is new fishing net. It is old fishing net. It's already there are some structures, marine structures developed on this fishing net or not, or it already destroyed some features of the habitat or not. So here we can go on with a discussion. For example, what we need to monitor and why we need to monitor it. Um, how we should monitor. For example, if collected data can be convertible. For example, if I work 50-50 square image or EC2, the counting can be convertible between each other. For example, could we categorize protocol steps respect to general structure? If you remember, just at the beginning of the presentation, we saw there are dominant coral dominant ambience or algae dominant ambience, and other advice. For example, can we categorize the local impact? If it is exists, we should apply this protocol. If not, we can say these impacts are not exist this area. Can we use novel technologies if somebody apply a new technique and how it went, the cost efficiency of this? We can all discuss this. Actually, I am very sorry. I could not provide a common practice about Coralligenous monitoring because the complexity of the structure and because of the knowledge gap. And maybe we should define very well what we need to know to create a good policy on this habitat, what we need to know. So how we can collect this information. If somebody would like to communicate with me, and this is my mail, and I think, Michelle, we can go on with discussion. I hope it works.
Yes, thank you so much, Senem, for this excellent presentation. Very insightful. And indeed, now the whole question is to define what we need to know, how to monitor in order to have a more harmonized view on this. And so right now we have some time for an open discussion. And I would like to invite all of you here, all of you participants, to share with us as well what are your point of views on that, on what we need to monitor, how to monitor, any advices. And here your experience is very relevant, whether you're a policymaker, a practitioner, or a researcher, everything is useful for this topic. So is there anyone maybe who has been implementing some monitoring protocols who can share with us whether they have been using the same methods that were presented by Senem? Some other practices that you implement, maybe what works for you best? Do we have anyone who would like to jump in? Oh, yes. Guillaume, please. I see you have a hand. It has my name on it, but I know it's Guillaume, so please go ahead.
Yeah, I can start. Senem, you have compared, I guess, the different monitoring ongoing in the different sea in Europe. What are the elements that are common that could be a base to a good basis to harmonize or to spot the most important feature of those habitats to monitor?
Okay, I think it depends of the future. If there are coral species, it needs to measure to the colony size and colony health. If there is necrosis, etc. And if there is a coralline algae species are dominant, I prefer personally to measure the coverage and the other epiphytic structure on the algae, because when the defense mechanism do not work properly, the epiphytes became dominant. So this is already a good indicator in the minimum effort with video transect and photos, without knowing the details in species level, etc. The balance between the species, existence of the species. And we already know there are some indicator species. We can also monitor this indicator species if they exist or not. There are some indicators on how can I say, if there is a low salinity, we know some species are more dominant, or I don't know if there is organic pollution, some species can be shown in the area. So we can monitor indicator species and the size of the main bioconstructors and status of the main bioconstructors.
Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe I would also jump in for another question, Senem, for you. So you said that one of the most common practices was using diving surveys and images. Is
Yes.
that something that is known to work well and that could be applied more widely, or it's already well applied and it's good?
Yes, it is. It works well in some point, because at some point, what is the limitation? The limitation is the photo, the information, 3D information become 2D information. So who analyze these photos should already know the marine organisms very well, how they are exist in the marine ecosystem. And the second limitation of these images, we can work with divers up to some limit. There is a depth problem, and but we know these coralligenous structures can arrive up to 200 meters. And 50 meters, 60 meters, we can work with the divers. But then there will be a human limit. So there should be combination of the methodologies. Obviously, we have more divers and photo cameras respect to RAWs, and this is cheaper. At least up to some limit, depth limit, it could be a common practice. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Really interesting. Yeah, we have a question in the chat. We have someone asking about the protection status of coralligenous habitats across the EU. For example, does the Annex 1 habitat type 1170 of the Habitat Directive cover all types and sizes of Mediterranean coralligenous habitats? And what is your suggestion for monitoring them, considering the implementation of Article 17 of the Habitats Directive? Thanks.
If I remember it. Actually, I don't remember their status, honestly. I need to check. If I remember well, this is not consider all coralligenous habitats are covered in the protection. What is the suggestion monitoring them? Habitat mapping. There should be a habitat mapping. Then first, I think after habitat mapping, it needs to define the type of the coralligenous habitat, and then they can check if this is the it's if it is matched the under Article 18 or not, and so they can they can go with key species, and they can monitor absolutely sedimentation rate and anthropogenic pressure, fishing gear damage, invasive species, existence of invasive species, etc.
Thank you, Senem. Does this answer to the question? Probably. I think it was pretty clear. Okay, Petra, thank you. We have a comment on this as well to complement.
Hello, hi, I'm Petra from Croatian Ministry of Environmental Protection and Green Transition. Yes, we have done our interpretation of Annex 1 habitats, both terrestrial and marine. So, according to the interpretation manual of EU habitats, where Coralligenous is definitely a part of a reefs habitat type. And according to that, the whole diversity of Coralligenous biocenosis is actually a part of Annex 1 reef habitat. So I think it should be like that everywhere. So,
Sure.
well, of course, every member state can do its own interpretation, and it's usually validated by the Commission. So I guess everyone should look into their own interpretation, but I believe the whole Coralligenous should be a part. Nevertheless, it is a priority habitat under Barcelona Convention. It's also a habitat that is now in the annex of nature restoration law. So we have it all covered, I guess, with practically very high level of protection. So there are many both so Mediterranean agreements or conventions and EU legislation that we should look at if we want to know what we should be monitoring. And when talking about Habitats Directive, there is a clear guidance on what conservation status is for a habitat, and we should monitor the conservation status and all of its parameters. Of course, since Coralligenous is only a part of Annex 1 Habitats Directive habitat, I think there is a problem of concentrating only on Coralligenous, while the Annex 1 habitat reefs is really broad, and you have to monitor a lot of parameters, and then think about the costs and the results, what you need to, which you need to get. So I don't know if we concentrate only on Coralligenous, maybe we can just take the parameters that are relevant for all Annex 1 habitats and just transfer it on the level of Coralligenous. We have tried to do that like 10 years ago, unfortunately, and there is actually in Croatia a program for monitoring Coralligenous, but it hasn't been implemented very well. So we don't have like good testing, let's say, of this program. So that's from me for now.
Actually, I read very good study from Croatia. They did similar work with the GGSMET about characterization of Coralligenous habitats. I think in Croatia there are more different type of Coralligenous habitats
Yes.
than we saw in Turkey. And what I saw, they were more on corals, more than coralline algae, more than coral species.
Mhm. Okay, I'm not very well acquainted with the work of Tigges-Med, but the work that was done, that's like almost 10 years ago. In one small project, Med MPA Net,
Yes.
and it was well, they did I think a good work on selecting the most important parts of all biocenosis that are in Croatia. So I don't know, it's a very good start for us. The methodologies are, of course, the ones that you mentioned already, mostly based on photo quadrats and visual census estimation, which is, of course, just limited to shallow water communities. Shallow meaning like maybe 40 meters.
It's not.
Yeah, but for the deeper ones, we had also a project last year on the whole Annex 1 habitat. And yes, we also came across a problem with these deeper communities and the really existing need to use ROVs. And it's not, I don't know if there is any other way to do it. But use ROVs and combine it with, or maybe just divide shallow water and deep water and do a completely, separate work, because they are more or less, they're influenced differently, they react differently. Maybe maybe that would be the start. Let's say, concentrate on shallow separately and on deep, and then try to, come up with some common assessment. Yeah.
That's good idea.
Yeah, thank you so much, Petra and Senem. Indeed, it's very relevant having as well policymakers who can explain this a bit better and try to link. It's important to know about this. So this is very useful. Thanks. Maybe we have some time for a last question or a last comment. And if not, I saw that there were some of you who answered that wanted to use this experience sharing session as a networking opportunity. So I'm going to paste on the chat a Google Doc where you can write in your contact and what you're working on if you would like to be contacted by the people in here.
Yes.
If that is okay. So feel free to add your contact, your name, and to get back to us. Big thank you to Senem. Thank you so much for this excellent presentation. And thank you to all of you for being here, for your interest in this topic. And I hope it has been useful and that it filled your expectations.